Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Our research-backed videos are engaging, easy to follow, and they help ease the daily challenges like agitation and anxiety so that you can focus on connection and joy. Available by subscription on mobile and TV apps, Zinnia makes every day a little bit easier. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
And welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks. I am your host, Lori LeBay, and today we are going to be talking with Cecilia Chan from Malaysia, and she's going to be talking about a retreat that she did that has just been life-changing for people and, her community at large. But before I go there, I just want to, again, welcome you to Alzheimer Speaks, encourage you to go to our website, alzheimerspeaks.com. We have tons of free educational resources there, as well as if you're looking for a speaker, educator, or trainer. We also want you to go visit our sister company, Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory, has some fantastic articles, a glossary of terms, and event calendar. So check those both out. But for right now, let's go pull in our guest. Well, Cecilia, I'm so excited to have you back on the show with us today. Why don't you give everybody a little background about yourself and introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Thank you, Lori. I'm so glad to be back. Yeah, I'm Cecilia. I'm here based in Malaysia, which is in Asia. And I'm a gerontologist, but most importantly, I would call myself a dementia advocate and activist.
Thank you. Now, are there very many dementia advocates over in Malaysia?
Sadly, no. I wish there's more, but sadly, no, not at the current moment, not in Malaysia, though.
And have you been personally touched by dementia in your own family or circle of friends? I'm sure you've been touched from clients and things, but I'm wondering on a personal note if you've been touched as well.
Yes, actually, I was caring for my grandmother towards the late stage of her life. I have been supporting her and personally involved in caring for my grandmother, and also my uncle, who towards the end also was living with dementia. So yes, I was personally touched.
Thank you. It seems like most people who step into this and really become an advocate have been personally touched in the journey, because I found it very different from what I was told it was going to be like, or I guess how just to live with it was frustrating because I didn't find the resources that would help me do that. And I wanted to improve that. It seems like a lot of advocates step into it due to that factor, due to a feeling of lack of. Was that kind of your motivation to step into this?
Not exactly, because even though I had a personal experience, it was a very short term. But what happened was I have been facing a bit, I will use the word bombarded, with a same scenario of people who are desperate, family members who are desperate, a community who are desperate, searching for support and help, but there is none available in Malaysia. The resources are very limited in Malaysia. So I decided to do something about it. That's actually what the trigger point was.
Okay, well, thank you. Do you think, in kind of that feeling of loss and, overwhelmness, do you think a lot of that is due to stigma with the disease?
Oh, yes, Laurie. It has got a lot to do with stigma. Stigma is so prevalent in Malaysia and it is everywhere, and it's so thick that it is actually one of the most important factor that actually overwhelms everyone. It is true, Laurie.
Can you give us some examples of different types of stigma that you see in your community?
Oh, I don't know where to begin. Where shall I begin? It's everywhere. It is from the diagnosis itself. Actually, the stigma actually prevents people, even though they are experiencing some kind of changes. Some of them are pretty obvious. It is pretty obvious that they are experiencing some signs and which is disturbing, but they still wouldn't want to get a diagnosis. They wouldn't want to go and seek medical attention or get an assessment done because of the stigma. So there it is. So the statistics in Malaysia, it is actually, I would say, not accurate. It is underrepresented because a lot of people, even though they are pretty, they have obvious signs, are very reluctant to get assessment, to get a diagnosis, because I don't want to be labeled with having a dementia. And that is just one aspect. There are also a lot of family members who have the diagnosis, or they know that they have some cognitive changes and are keeping their loved ones at home, isolate them so that they will not go, embarrass themselves, or society would not laugh at them or make fun of them or ignore them. So it's very, very common to have family members isolating, so they don't take their mom out, they don't go to church, they don't go for religious activities, they don't go out to have meals outside because it's such an embarrassment to them. And also people themselves who are experiencing cognitive changes themselves isolate themselves. So this is a voluntary thing. I do not want to go out because I'm afraid that I will make a fool of myself. What would my neighbors say? What would my church community say? That sort of thing. And I have a lot of family members who are very disappointed and feel very hurt because even their close ones. So I just had recent case of a couple, a spouse that is supporting another spouse living with dementia, and they used to have a very wide social circle. They used to have very wide networks. And she said it's very hurtful when even their close ones, close friends, when they learn that the husband is living with dementia, called her and said, "Oh, I suppose now we will stop visiting you because we do not know how to deal with him." So these are neighbors and all that we have so much history together, and suddenly they are distancing themselves. So these are many, many ways that we are facing in Malaysia. It's all due to stigma.
It sounds very similar to the rest of the world, but I think when we don't talk on a global level, we think it's just us, in our community. I know here in the US, there are still doctors that are not telling patients of the diagnosis because they don't know how to help them either. They're not connected and networked into that. And so, it's just this horrible circle, and that embarrassment of embarrassing themselves or the family, that is very, very real. That isolation or the self-isolation of the person with dementia. My mom was scared to death to make a mistake and somebody might see what's going on or figure it out. She was still working, and she actually made up a 3-ring binder and carried it back and forth to work in case she got stuck, because she didn't want to ask anybody because she was scared to death she'd lose her job. She stopped driving at night so she didn't go out with her friends in the evening because she was afraid she'd get lost and not be able to find her way home. But, she didn't really tell any of us those things when it was going on. We kind of looked back after the fact and found out some of those things. But that fear is very intense, and that loneliness is just heart wrenching on all sides with that. My parents too had a huge circle of friends, and it got very, very small. And even the small circle, even though it was there, it was different. You know, they
Yeah.
didn't see each other as often. They didn't do the same types of things, and and they knew something was going on, but nobody really acknowledged it. From us as a family, we tried to hide it because we thought that was dignified for them, and that made it really hard for the family to bring up the topic, or for the friends to bring up to the topic to the family. And I remember getting mad one time when they invited my folks to travel, you know, out of state during the winter and come visit. And I'm like, there's no way they could do that. But I never had that open conversation with their friends. You know, we hid it again in the mindset of, you know, keeping my mom's dignity. But in the long run, I think that worked against us. And if I had to do it again, I would share it with friends and family because they want to help. And, you know, we have to get over, we can't get help if we're not honest in terms of what we need. And that's a big, big thing to try to shift with all of that. So thanks for sharing that with us. You know, we talked about the kind of the social isolation and the withdrawal due to the stigma. What did you see and feel that impact like, you know, with maybe your own family as well as your clients? Were there specific comments or other changes or things that you want to address regarding that on a deeper level?
Yes, I feel that and in Malaysia, the family members and the close network of people who are supporting them, I can understand how overwhelmed they are because of the limited resources in Malaysia. And a lot of them are really desperate. And I suppose in their desperation and because they are so overwhelmed and trying to support with the limited resources, um, it would lead to what would I would term as an abuse. And it is so rampant in Malaysia. So much, especially in so when they're desperate, and usually this is the last resort, Laurie. So what happens to family members is as time goes by and they are totally exhausted, physically, emotionally. So then they will resort to placement. So then they would relocate their loved ones living with dementia in a facility. And unfortunately, in Malaysia, our facilities are not dementia friendly at all.
Mm.
Yeah, and our staff and who are supporting those living with dementia are not trained. So then what happens is because when we do not have the skills, and together with that we do not have adequate staff, and the ratio is crazy in Malaysia. So we do not have enough staff resources as well in facilities, and let's not go there. But the fact is that because of the lack of skills and the lack of knowledge and overwhelm, most of the facilities here resort to restraints. And the restraints we are talking about here are the physical restraints as well as chemical restraints. And this is used pretty widely in Malaysia. And it has been accepted. You know, it's quite heartbreaking for me, but it's been accepted that this is a common practice in a facility. And then family members, although they feel that they're not able to do anything, because what are the options, Laurie? If I take them back, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't handle it. And I do not have much resources. I do not know what else to do. So the only choice I have to is to place them in a facility. And even in facilities, most of them reject. You know, when you say, okay, is this a dementia case? And the first thing I would ask as an operator is he aggressive? That's the first thing. We kind of associate dementia with being aggressive. I don't know why, but it's common here. So the first thing is your mom aggressive? The second question is she on sedative? So these are the two criteria. And if I take a dementia case, I would definitely require that he or she is some kind of a sedative so that we can, sedate her when she is aggressive or at night and she can't sleep and all that. And family members do not have any choice, or else I have to take care of themselves and I can't. So that perpetuates in Malaysia. And that's the sad thing that I would like to address. And people do not talk about it here. We like to hide it. We like to sweep it under the carpet. And I know that a lot of people, Malaysians, will not be happy. But somebody has to say it, and here am I, Cecilia, telling this is the truth and this is happening every day. It breaks my heart. And I think we need to do something about it. We definitely need to talk about it and address it, to begin with.
Oh, for sure. And I appreciate your honesty. And I hope people from Malaysia, when they hear this, understand you are doing this to help, not to hurt, because we cannot get services to them. We cannot get training to them. We cannot change policy if we don't have these conversations and bring it to light. Like here in the U.S., they can't use physical restraints anymore. And there's a push to reduce medication restraints as well. They're really watching that and training, and you can't, but if you don't know how to deal with somebody, if you haven't been trained on how to work with somebody with dementia, even the staff are going to get overwhelmed. And when family or staff are overwhelmed, that's where abuse can happen. And really great physical harm, or even worse, or emotional harm can come to people as well. So it's really sad. You touched on, the staff, you don't have enough, and that's everybody's kind of feeling that. And I know here in the US, people are really worried about that now with, what's going on with our immigration policies and who's going to fill these jobs. And it doesn't seem like anybody's looking at the big picture. And it's a huge, huge concern. But I think all of our countries can learn from one another and support one another. But it takes a voice or two, and then it turns into a tribe that then really gets the attention that you need to address these situations. And this is so important. Dementia isn't something that people sign up for. This isn't something that's chosen. It's an illness, and no one should be embarrassed of an illness or feeling out of control and helpless due to an illness. We should be able to support people in different fashions by sharing our information and having wonderful advocates like yourself to kind of lead the way and bring light into a really dark, dark place for families. So I appreciate your honesty and your persistence. And to me, I think that's the only way we change things, is by having these conversations and not being embarrassed that we don't have enough staff, and not being embarrassed that we're not educated and trained, and not being embarrassed that we don't have the services. Just saying, this is new to us and we need to fix this. This is a new problem. And, I think for many, many years, people lived with dementia, but it wasn't called dementia. It was just, they're getting old. I remember when my great aunt had dementia, and I was like 13, and I'm 65 now. So that's a long time ago. But I was just told, well, that's what happens when somebody gets old. That was just it. And I remember her living in a nursing home that was dark and dingy, and it smelled like urine. And back then they were using restraints, and they were using chemicals, and people were just sleeping in their wheelchairs. And I remember thinking, boy, that's not a life I would want to live. We're stripping people of purpose and connection and all the things that make us human in our relationship. So I think it's important to explore these other avenues. Do you feel like there's hidden abuse in dementia care, both in families and professionals? I kind of mentioned that, with the stress and the lack of services or the lack of knowledge and support, we see that happen here in the U.S. and in many other countries. I would assume it's not different over there, that those types of things are happening, and not necessarily by choice, but it's just people are sleep deprived and overwhelmed and things. Do you see that there?
Oh, absolutely, Laurie. Absolutely. And we have a few cases recently that has been exposed to the media, and people who are, filming them actually. And this is actual abuse. I'm not talking about physical. I would consider physical restraint and chemical restraint abuse. But this is actual abuse where people actually we actually see physical hitting and slapping and causing hurt, physical hurt to the they call them the residents, those that they're caring for, those who are supporting. And we have actually seen videos of people being physically hurt in facilities. And these are very few those who are reported. And I am very sure that it is happening behind closed doors every day. And I would suppose also in their own homes, because when people are so overwhelmed and worked up, and they when they are just cannot take it, and that is how they would react, I suppose. Yeah, it's very common, very, very painful, and something that I would like to bring out very much, because it's very dark, and we don't talk about it. And again, it's happening every day, besides that restraining part, we are abusing them. And besides, there's also emotional abuse and verbal abuse, which is very hurtful. The words that they use and the tone of voice and how they treat people definitely occurs every day.
Yeah, and like you said, that physical abuse is horrible, but that emotional and psychological abuse creates so much fear and so much sadness and disconnect. It's just got to be a horrible, horrible way to live. I know in the U.S. here, there's been much more talk about abuse and what's happening. And here too, we are seeing people, staff and family posting stuff that is definitely abuse, and they're making fun of situations where they have no right to do that and strip somebody of their dignity or actually neglect or physically hurt them, and not thinking twice about it. Yes. I still remember my dad didn't have dementia, but he had brain cancer, and he ended up in a nursing home here. And there was a time, and he was starting to hallucinate a little bit with his brain cancer. And he was talking about how the staff were making fun of him, like when he was in the shower, and just very disrespectful. And I still kick myself in the butt because I didn't believe him, because there was a core group of staff that was so excellent. And I had asked them, was this happening? And they all said no, not to their knowledge. And I just thought maybe Dad's hallucinating. And I remember at his funeral, one of the staff came, and she was just in tears. She gave me this beautiful letter that said, my dad really was never a father to me, but your dad was. I'm going to get emotional.
Wow.
And then she admitted that there were some staff in the evenings that were abusive, but she was scared to death she would lose her job or she would be physically hurt herself. And she worried about retribution on my dad as well. And to this day, it still hurts that I did not believe him. I put it off to his dementia. I thought I checked as far as I could. And of course, the other staff wouldn't admit to it. But the good staff then, she did break her silence afterwards, but it was too late, because there is fear of retaliation with some of those situations as well. And so, we are seeing more advocate groups starting up here to protect families, and where families can turn to report abuse, and they're helping them kind of through the medical systems and trying to change policies with the government. But it's a painful and slow process, to go through. And we're seeing more and more of a call for more restrictions and guidelines to help companies as well as educate families. I mean, there's, we talked about the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, the psychological abuse, but there's financial abuse. I mean, there's all kinds of different types of abuse. And, it can happen within a family. It can happen in a community that you trust. It can happen with strangers, especially with all the scammers and stuff that are out there now.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
hired staff within a home that you don't know are abusing, your loved ones. I know some people use cameras in the home to kind of monitor that, but not everybody can afford that, or you might not catch it. It could be
Yes.
in a different room. So it's a very, very tricky thing. And for families who are feeling that, they aren't caring for their loved one the way that they would like, as hard as it is, I think we have to encourage them to speak up, because we need to be able to address this. But again, they don't want to go to jail or, be shunned themselves when they're really, for the most part, I think, and this is my belief, I believe most people aren't purposely doing this, but it's out of exhaustion. It's out of not having any free time, and, just even dealing with someone who just repeats themselves over and over and over and over and over again, can be really draining on an individual when they're trying to process and care for other things in their life as well. And so it doesn't have to be a big trigger moment. It can just be all of a sudden, as a family member, you are responsible for everything. And maybe half the household duties were theirs, or maybe all of them were, and you worked outside the house. And now, now you're responsible for everything 24/7. That's a lot. And, in the US, we, I think, pride ourselves on being independent. And so we don't ask for help. And I don't know what that's like in your culture, if you see that as well, that families feel like this is our job, or that we don't have any other options, to do this.
Like what I think the important thing in Malaysia is that I think the courage to speak out, the courage to share their situation and their experiences, because I think a lot of people, actually, especially family members who are supporting their loved ones, is a solo journey. Usually they are the lone rangers, that's the spouse or the only child, or the rest of them are, all over, and only one single person is, multitasking and single-handedly doing all sorts of things to support. It's impossible. And you and I know, Laurie, in the world of dementia, it is impossible to do everything by yourself. We actually need a team, and in order for us to build a community, I think the first step is to have the courage to share, to have the courage to reach out, to have the courage to talk about it, so that people are aware of it, because people are not even aware that this is happening in the first place. So I think the first small step is having the courage to at least open up and talk about it. And then from there, we can build a community that supports one another, so that you will not feel so overwhelmed. Yeah, there are not much resources in Malaysia. We don't have policies in Malaysia I'm going to be very bold to say our government doesn't really care about dementia in Malaysia, but we can do what we can. We as a community can start right here locally instead of hoping, for external outside policymakers and, researchers or government to care. For that to happen, I think we can start where we are locally. That's what I'm doing now, actually.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Alison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Well, and I think that is so important, of a topic. It's one of those things that is hard to get started and to pull people together. And I think you really almost have to lead by example with so much of this stuff and create a comfortable setting where people don't feel like they are going to that they're not going to be scolded, where they'll be understood and maybe lifted up and given some tools. And, when you don't feel you have that, and I know when I was dealing with this 40 years ago with my mom, I just, even though we had a big Alzheimer's association, the doctor never told us there even was an Alzheimer's association. We didn't even know to look for that. I mean, we just figured, here's our pill. I guess this is our journey because we're not getting anything else. And yet we had those things and it still wasn't being communicated to us. And now there are so many different resources, from books and films and videos and support groups and, things you can purchase, things that are free, radio shows like this where people can just listen and learn. And if nothing else, understand they're not alone. They're not the only lone soul going through this journey. And I know when I was going through it, that I felt like that, like, where is everyone? Where are they? We can't be the only ones out here. And yet, you hear this dead silence, or you bring it up and you just see fear on people's faces because they are so uneducated and so fearful with what they have been told so far that there's, no hope, for this journey. So, don't fix it. It's not fixable, and it's not necessarily fixable, but it's adjustable. It's able to be supported, and, teaching people that there is hope and there is life with this. But like you said, we can't do it alone. And when we share our knowledge, it's so important. I'm going to just take a break really quick here. For those who are tuning in, we have been talking with Dr. Cecilia Chan over in Malaysia, and she is a dementia advocate and activist. And she is just doing some amazing work over there. And I'm so thrilled that she called in. And we will have her website and email and social media links in the notes so that you can get directly to those. I also want to just mention a company called Q for Good. And Q for Good is actually a webmaster that I personally use. They are over in India and they are fabulous. I can't speak highly enough. Their communication style, their patience with me when they're talking over my head. And even though I've been in the industry a long time and had websites for many, many years, it's still a complicated process. And they just kind of take the fear out of it. They support me like I try to support people with dementia, I guess, in a lot of ways. So check out Q for Good. They are just wonderful. And if you mention my name or Alzheimer Speaks, you can get 10% off. I also want to give a shout out to Twiddle. Twiddle has sensory tools or aids, like little muffs that people can put their hands in that have kind of all kinds of little fidget objects on them or with them to give calmness. So especially if someone's going through sundowning or a period of anxiety, it gives them something physically to do with their hands. You can go to their website, and it's the number 4 and then twiddles.com. And you can get a 25% discount on their products too by just putting AS25 for Alzheimer Speaks 25 on there as well. So let's go back to Dr. Cecilia Chan. This is just a really interesting conversation because I think everybody in different countries thinks their country is different than everyone else's. And yet all of us are kind of going through the same things. We might be at different stages of how we're dealing with those things. And Cecilia is really a pioneer over there in terms of trying to make a difference in the lives of families as well as professionals. So let's talk about you leading by example, because you've started kind of this compassionate revolution over there for dementia care. And can you tell us a little bit about that and what you've called it, what the name of your I guess, program is?
Maybe I will share a little bit about our latest project, which is Dementia Retreat. And we call it Dancing with Dementia Retreat. And we had it recently in January 4th to 5th over the weekend. And it took me about a year, Laurie, to make it happen. Because I felt like, in Malaysia, people believe that those living with dementia are not able to go out and have fun and, beyond their four walls in their house or in facilities. So they stop going out to the outside world. They stop dining outside. They stop going to the beach or the park, where the nature is. And I thought that it would be great if we could all go for a retreat, for those living with dementia and the family members and us supporting them. And but the response I get was pretty negative, Laurie. And a lot of professionals actually told me, Cecilia, are you out of your mind? And I thought it would be nice to go to the beach because Penang is an island. So I thought it would be nice to go to a beach resort where we can, stroll by the beach and when we can have enjoy the breeze and just relax. And we will have activities throughout, and the family members could go for a break. They could go for the manicure, pedicure, massage, or we can have counselors there, some of them who might need counseling. And I thought it would be a great idea, but nobody actually at that time when I coined this idea supported me. Everybody thought I was crazy and out of my mind and it was not doable. But then I persisted and I said, I don't think so. Something is not right because my heart was telling me that, it is something essential and it is something every basic human being would require. And I know these people that I'm supporting with dementia. I'm journeyed with them and I have a relationship with them. My team knows them. And I said, I'm going to go ahead. So I stubbornly went ahead and we had to raise funds, so we had to have various activities so that we would raise enough funds so that we can run it. So we did a bit of a few fundraising projects and we managed to get it happen. And we reached out to family members, those we are supporting. And also we got our partners from Japan, they are the Totsu dancers or who have been with us for 3 years. we have been collaborating for the past 3 years. They come over to Malaysia. I've been to Japan, and I've invited them to be a part of the retreat, and they were there too. So it was a beautiful, almost a spiritual experience for all of us. All of us were very touched in one way or another, and I think it helped us grow. It was also a learning process, a very humbling process. Although it's a small group, I was hoping that it's not just merely an experience for us, but that this would inspire others in Malaysia to do the same. Because people will, even you see some Laurie, researchers or literature saying that people living with dementia gets aggressive, and when they are in a new environment, don't take them out anywhere, because if they go to a new environment, they will become disorientated and they will become aggressive. So these are the main warnings that I've been given by people, including professionals. But I said, I know my people, I know them, and if they get maybe disoriented, I would know how to support them. We are there, and I listened to my heart. We all did, and there were no signs of anxiety, Laurie. It was a totally new environment. None of them were anxious. None of them were maybe they were a bit surprised, I would say, and they were taken aback. And I think that's just like you and I. We go to a new place, we would be maybe we have our own reaction. Some of us we like it, some of the things we may not like, but that's human. That's not because of dementia. It's amazing that we blame everything on dementia. But it was an amazing experience. People connected, people laughed. We have seen spouses and the family members who have said that I have never seen my parents so genuinely happy. I have never seen them so connected. I have never seen them so themselves. They're allowed to be themselves. They are dancing, they were singing, they were laughing. And one particular experience which really touched me was I have a couple, both of them were living with dementia, and their daughter was there, but the daughter had to go for a corporate company event, so she had to be away, and she would only come back around midnight. The dinner ends. By the time she come back, it would be midnight. So we had to be with them in their rooms. So we had to accompany them in their rooms, and so we were sitting with this couple, and we were chatting and all that. And so they were telling us, look, the bed is so huge. We have such a huge bed and so comfortable. Why don't you all sleep here with us? That's me and another team member. It's like, it's enough for the four of us. And why don't you just sleep here and you don't have to go anywhere else? There's plenty of space. And I was so touched because both of them are pretty advanced. Their language ability are pretty limited and all that. Yet they were so comfortable with us in a strange place, and even inviting us to their very intimate space to share the bed with them. And I think that says a lot about what we have been programmed and conditioned to believe with regards to dementia. And I have one lady who can't even recognize sometimes their own family members, her own daughter who stays with her. And sometimes she would not be able to recognize even their grandchildren. Yet, when we were sitting at the hall, when there were a group of people, she could recognize them, not necessarily correctly, but she would know that these are the people that I know. And so our team members, that means those who are working in my center, she will look at them and say, see, that's the lady in pink, that lady in black, that gentleman in shorts. These are from our home, isn't it? And home means our center, the center. So she was saying, wow, everyone is here. The whole family is here. This is really fun. I'm so glad that everybody decides to be here. So she could actually have that emotional kind of memory, very different from a cognitive memory, but the feeling that, she she that she recognizes us in her heart and that she feels very comfortable. So the same, I suppose, goes for everyone there. I mean, living with dementia, they felt a sense of security and warmth because the environment that was there is very supportive. And even though it's in a strange place, but the people there are safe. And I think that's the important message that we learn during the retreat, Laurie.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I did a cruise years ago, and I kind of wondered the same thing, but I felt so strongly that these families would be okay, and they totally shocked me. I mean, they were up early and they stayed up late talking to one another because they were so happy to be connected. I mean, it was absolutely incredible to see the comfort, and all of them said it was life changing. They made friends forever because people came from all over, and so many of them stayed connected after the cruise. And again, but it was a very, I think, thoughtful program that we put together to do some education, have some fun, have some free time, have meals together. And, and they just, I don't think anybody ever really felt alone. They knew if something went wrong or they were uncomfortable, they knew where to go, and that we would be there to support them. And like you said, that everyone was accepted for where they were at. When you had mentioned about the couple, inviting you guys into their bed, you gave them purpose again to feel like they could even mention that. But they apparently recognized that it was late at night and wanted to take care of you guys too. So you got some sleep before their daughter came home. And so, that's to me, a big piece of this too is, you pull in that emotional recognition, but you also pull in that piece of purpose and belonging to a group and to a community. And I think especially with our elders, it'll be interesting with our younger kids, how they view this when they get older. But I think our elders, they were so in tune with community and reaching out and helping others. I mean, that was just a natural piece. And when that's stripped away from you, when you feel like you can't offer anything up, because they hear people talking about them and that they can't do this and they can't do that, or they're standing right there and no one's including them in the conversation. They sense all of that. And what a horrible, horrible feeling that must be, to not feel included, accepted, or belonging. And then when you fall back into it, it's like fairy dust, it's like this magical little rabbit hole that you fell down into and said, yeah, this is what I remember life was like. It was good. I was respected. I was liked. I was comforted. I was safe. I could be part. And that, I think, is something every single human being wants on this planet. And we don't talk about it. I mean, I think that's why we have a lot of mental health issues right now, is people don't feel comfortable talking about not fitting in or not belonging. And then things come out sideways. So there's, to me, so many overlaps with how we care for people. And, what you're doing for people with dementia is good for all people, not just because they have dementia. You're just saying they have a right to be like the rest of us and to be able to participate and be out in the community and not feel embarrassed or ashamed and be accepted and to be able to have fun. I just think it's incredible what you did, and that you didn't let the negativity of, no, you can't do that. All the research says they're going to get aggressive. Well, yeah, they're going to get aggressive if they don't feel safe, just like you or I would if we didn't feel safe.
Absolutely right. Yes.
And so, but it takes someone who looks within to say, how would I react to something like that? And how can we do this differently? So that's not the reaction. Because we can, through training and through understanding and through just our connective relationships, we can change those outcomes. Just like we do, as we're raising our kids, and we all do that a little bit different. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Same with dementia. Everything's not going to work perfect, but life wasn't perfect prior to dementia. And so to raise it to a standard of there can't be a mistake, or there can't be an error, or there can't be, a bad outcome. Well, we already have bad outcomes. So, let's get on the road to trying to remove those and do something where, as individuals, even if it's not the outcome I wanted, I'm going to learn from it, and it's going to bring me closer to getting to that outcome. And maybe your outcome's going to change after your experience and go, boy, I wanted this, but you know what? After talking with people, they really need this. It's that openness of really that greater good aspect of how do we improve lives. And when we improve it for the person with dementia, we're improving it for the family members, we're improving it for the staff members, and we're improving it for the general public as a whole. I mean, the ripple effect is massively huge. And when people see something like their parents connecting, when they haven't seen that before, when they haven't seen them happy, when they haven't seen them feel part, and they make a comment of, oh my gosh, that's my parents. I haven't seen that. And they've kind of been brainwashed that it's never going to come back. They're totally gone. And it's not. We have to pull it out in a different fashion. We have to adjust to life so it makes sense for them and makes sense for us as well. And that human connectiveness, I don't know, to me is such a huge motivator. I know for a lot of people, it's just strictly money. How am I going to make money at this? And if I can't make money, then it's not worth it. But, for me, I mean, everybody wants to make money and make a living, but it's so much deeper than that, to be able to see the mental health and the wellness of a being changed, to see that it's kind of like a flower blossoming, before you, and the beauty within that versus just dying on the stem. And so kudos to you and your team for raising the funds and for collaborating with Japan, and to not giving up on humanity, and that we can do better. And are you planning on doing another one next year? Or?
I am hoping, Laurie, that the first retreat will inspire others. So it would be great if people from another part of Malaysia would also think of, perhaps organizing the same retreat, so that it will not only be where I am, that I'm up north here in Penang, but I hope that people from other places in Malaysia will also perhaps be inspired to have one in their place. And I would be more than happy to go and support them and help them organize it. And that's my wish. I hope that we'll have little pockets of community doing the same in Malaysia.
Oh, that's neat. And well, like you said, it took you a year to pull off. I know when we did our cruise, I mean, it's a lot of programming. You're putting a lot of stuff together. But boy, it's worth every single second when you see the outcomes, of people. Now, do you guys have a lot of like support groups and things over in Malaysia too, to really be able to connect to people? Or adult day programs is what we call them over here, where somebody can go for a little bit?
Unfortunately, not so in Malaysia. Like I said, Laurie, our resources are actually very limited.
Mm-hmm.
So what's available in Malaysia, basically, I would divide them into two, actually. One is a facility. Daycare centers, unfortunately, in Malaysia is not so popular. And one of the reasons is it doesn't turn in income. To get your ROI, it's not so fast and it's not so lucrative. And so for business people to run it, it's not ideal. So if I want to, I've put in so much resources for me to get back my ROI, I will not be able to do so. It's not a lucrative business, and the returns are not so great. So it is not that popular in Malaysia. What we have here are facilities like nursing homes, care homes. These are 24 hours residential care. And alternatively, what we have is home care, which means that we will have staff going into your homes and provide you the services that you need. And these are the only two that's available, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and it's hard, I mean, even to do adult daycare if you're short-staffed in these other areas, how do you draw people into then another third wheel of care?
Right.
Makes it more difficult. I know we have done a lot with the memory cafes, which allows the couples to be together. I do one that is virtual now, and if anybody over there would want to attend, they're more than welcome. But we do it at 1 p.m. here, so that would be in the middle of the night over there. So that probably wouldn't work for them, but. Everyone says how those are just lifesavers if they're in person or not, but it allows them to continue to stay together as a group and just support one another and hear one another's stories, and very empowering. The other thing that I'll just mention, and Alzheimer Speaks has this on our website, we have a poetry section. And what I found for people who can't attend a support group, maybe because they don't exist, or maybe because they're just not ready to go out in public, or they can't, being able to read other people's stories, because poetry is usually pretty highly emotional, outlet. But I was shocked at how many people said that really helped me, because they could, cry or laugh at home over things that they would never discuss with anybody else, or didn't feel like they could be honest with someone else, and it kind of took away some of that isolation. Are some of the comments that we've heard with that. Gosh, it would be nice if you could have gotten a research team to come out and see the difference in terms of where people were at before the retreat and after the retreat. Would have been really interesting. And I don't know if there's funding for something like that, over there, but that might help change the narrative from the medical model side of what really works or doesn't.
Yeah, that would be great to have that. In fact, even though we have actually cases, I would say most of the cases that we have, the people that we are supporting have been rejected and kicked out from facilities because they were aggressive, because they were misbehaving, they were, I can't take them anymore. And so these are the rejects.
Mm-hmm.
And look at what they have become, someone so beautiful, someone so caring. And I feel each time I spend time with them, I'm learning from them. They have imparted on me the wisdom that I am learning again and again. And it's again from the being of the heart. It's not the cognitive, it's not the intellect, but it is the wisdom from within the core of the person that have touched me. And I have learned so much from them, daily. Each time I'm with them, each time a new level of wisdom, they would have something to teach me. And it's something so powerful. And I, again, wish that it's not only them that have changed and transformed, we also have changed and transformed. It's a fluid, beautiful thing. And I wish that more people are aware of this.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Alison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
It is not a one-way thing.
Oh, very true. Very true. Now, you use a phrase, healing the divide by creating a safe space for all, which I just think is a wonderful phrase that really sums it up. That, you know, when we make people comfortable to be able to speak or be their true selves, it removes that anxiety, you know. It just, but again, that's no different than you or I. And yet we think people with dementia need something so much different. They might need it on a different level in a different way, but the core of it is the same that we all want as human beings, you know, on this earth. We want to feel safe. We want to feel accepted. We want to feel heard. I mean, I think, you know, and my mom said my grandma had dementia. We don't know that for sure because my mom had dementia by the time she shared that with our family. My mom had dementia. I could easily have dementia. And I think, boy, I will give people a run for their money because I have tried to live a life of being inclusive and allowing people to be heard. And if that's taken away from me, you know, it's going to be interesting how I would deal with that, because I would be very frustrated and I might get aggressive, or I might just curl up in a ball and just isolate and wither away. You know, I mean, that's really people's options. What there is no middle ground when you're treated like that.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And so, you know, I think we all have to look inward of how would I like to be treated? How would I like to be talked to? You know, and a lot of times I think with people with dementia, we make the decision, well, they couldn't participate, instead of trying it and seeing if they could participate and then making a decision, you know, or making an adjustment during that participation, whatever it is. It's just kind of like with people with art, you know, they've been told, you know, person with dementia can't learn anything new. And I mean, on our site, Alzheimer Speaks, in our resource directory, we have interviews of people in their artwork. And the stuff that they've done is incredible. I mean, some of it should be commissioned. And they're trying new things, and they're adapting even how to do a certain type of art, because that's what life is all about. It's about adapting to your current skill sets or your current situations to make the best of it. And it just saddens me that in so many areas we have given up and said they're not worth the work to do that adaptation. You know, it's just, no, this is what it is, when many of those people have never experienced it. And, you know, it's not easy to tell a loved one that their loved one isn't the person that they've always been or known, and that they're never coming back. And my guess is you believe, like I, that in the core, in their heart, in their soul, that person is always there. They just have to communicate their needs and their thoughts in a different fashion. And it might be for us to slow down in terms of how we talk. It might be for us to kind of shut up and give them time to answer instead of filling in the quiet parts. It might be adjusting how we accomplish something. Instead of giving somebody a full task, maybe they do part of the task, but still giving them that ability to participate and be heard and feel accomplished and purposeful. And I can't thank you enough for you stepping up and tackling this in a community that, you know, kind of has that core belief of, no, you can't do that. Because I know what that's like. I was there when I started, and it was very frustrating. And there were a lot of times I wanted to give up, because the fight to push through can be just absolutely exhausting.
It is.
And frustrating. And but you know, you just have to learn, and sometimes you have to feel the pain of that pushback. I found it actually made me stronger in some ways, because I'm stubborn. But sometimes you just have to stop talking to those people and go on to the next group, and, kind of push your passion and say, okay, they don't believe. That's okay. I'm going to stop trying to convince them that it's different, because it's draining my soul too much. And that's exactly what they want. They want me to stop and move on to the next set, like where you found a beautiful team to support you, on your retreat. And look what happened, because you have people that believe. And when you surround your people that believe in the possibility of change, I think the type of change is endless, and it can get so creative because you all have minds working at the same angle. We might have different ideas of how to make that change, but to me, that's a cool thing. It's not a negative.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like, oh, I never thought of that. Yeah, let's go ahead and try that and see what happens, and play off one another. So, very, very neat. Anything that you want to add that we haven't covered?
Actually, one of the lessons that I've learned also from the retreat is learning. And it is not by the book, it is not by the literature, it is not by researchers that is funded by, who is about the people living with dementia. They should be our teachers. They should be our gurus, because each person is different, just like you and I, Laurie, we are different. And when sometimes I think when the problem with reading books and literatures, and although I read a lot, but then we begin to then cookie cut them. And it's sort of like, okay, so now people with dementia, this is what we do. Step 1, step 2, and we structure them, and we kind of copy and paste, and we apply them to every person. That is where, and when we fail, we say, no, it doesn't work. Let's resort then back to restraining them. And because it didn't work. So I think the core message is that look at the person, each individual, and let the person teach you. I did a mistake recently, and I went to a person, and he's pretty advanced, totally non-verbal, and I brought my tools to assess him. It's quite funny. And then because I wasn't aware of his skills and his abilities and all that, so I brought all sorts of things. And when I reached there and I sat down with him, he was on a bed, and I decided that, oh, Cecilia, you're so silly. And I just discarded everything, and I just sat down with him and let him be the leader and let him teach me on how to connect with him. And I will just then follow. And he's the dance leader, and I'm his partner. And that is something that I'm still learning, Laurie, every day. So I think it's essential. What is most essential is to connect with the person and learn from that particular person, each person that you're supporting. Yeah.
I agree that the people with dementia have so much to teach us. The same with their care partners, because everybody's situation is a little different. And I'm with you. I hear the cookie cutter, here's the package, and it just makes me literally want to get physically sick, because I know it's not going to work for probably 75 to 80% of the population. And it can shut down that mode of exploration, or it's too cumbersome because you have to do A to B to C to D to D to D to D, and then it's too much work. It has to be practical, and it has to be humanized, and it has to be implementable. And we have to allow people to veer off the path, because it's not always going to work. And sometimes when you hit a detour like that, you learn so much. You find out something you never would have learned any other way. If it would have worked, you never, ever would have learned that valuable, tip or tool or whatever it might be, or just have a beautiful experience because you veered off the path. And life is about, to me, creating those beautiful moments, for all of us. And
Yes.
being able to have that be repeatable and to give people permission to try what makes sense to them. You had said, in my heart, I just felt I had to do this, even though people were telling me no. Care partners, people with dementia also feel that I'm, maybe I should try this, but then they're worried about being scolded, with that stuff. So,
Yes.
Again, thank you so much. And we'd love to have you back in a year and see where you're at. And hopefully there'll be other areas in Malaysia that'll want to start this. And, and I'm hoping that you will be able to do another program as well to, again, kind of lead by example. And what I found is so many people who participate want to share that with other people that they're connected with too. They feel a little braver once they find kind of that safe place for them, and they want to share that. So again, thank you so much for your time today. Again, in the show notes, we will have her website, which is bsceldercare.com.my. We will have her email, her LinkedIn, her Facebook, and her beautiful blog that she makes posts to as well. And so feel free to reach out to Dr. Cecilia Chan and all the wonderful work she's doing at Malaysia and sharing that with the rest of the world. So thanks again, Cecilia. You have a...
Thank you so much, Laurie, for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. And to our listeners, I just want to ask you to be givers of hope. You can go ahead to our website and download one of our graphics that says, I am a giver of hope, or we are a giver of hope if you're an organization. And it's just a place to be able to share your story, your resources, and, keeping it simple and not confining people to what they've been told, but let them explore on their own, because they'll have, certain things will resonate with them, and they might decide, what, I know more than what I thought I did, and I can now share this too with the world. And the more people we have sharing, I think the better off we all are. So again, until next time, everyone.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Alison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.